first time. We are trying Zoom for the first time for one of these meetings. Ideally, we would have loved to have been in person. I just want to say, just give a notice of recording, just to ensure that residents are aware that this meeting is being recorded and will be available for future records and will be uploaded onto the council streaming location. So I just want to ensure that everybody is aware of that. As I was saying, would have loved to have been meeting in person, or certainly down the route of hybrid, which I think will become a common use in future. However, the council is still, the council policy remains that we meet online at the moment. And I think everybody will understand that, particularly in light of the government's announcements around the pandemic. So the agenda for tonight's meeting is pretty simple. I'll give you a short update on what I've been up to and some of the work that I've been involved in as a councillor. I will then hand over to Inspector Nick Hill. The Perry Bar constituency inspector will give us an update on policing in the Lozells neighbourhood and some of the work they've been concentrating on. And then I'll bring Aoife in from the council's transport team, who will talk a little about the ongoing consultation that's currently taking place for the Lozells People's for Place project. There's a live consultation taking place at the moment. We want to ensure that we get as many responses as possible on that. There will, during the course of the meeting, after each of the sections, be an opportunity for colleagues and residents to ask any questions, ask any clarifications, any comments, and there will be an opportunity right at the end for anyone to raise any other business, anything that hasn't been raised, any matters of concern that residents want to raise with myself and or the police or anybody else in the meeting. So just to update you on some of the work that I've been involved in thus far. Vaccination levels, unfortunately, remain very low in Lozells. We're the second lowest in the city, which is deeply concerning. We've got less than half the people double vaccinated in Lozells, which remains a major concern for the council, for public health, the NHS and everybody. So if we can please encourage family, friends, neighbours, anybody in the community to go and get vaccinated. I've had the pleasure of being not only double vaccinated, but because of my underlying health issues, I've already been invited for a booster. I've had the booster. I had it on the Heathfield Road on a Tuesday at the Mandir on the corner of Brecon Road and Heathfield Road. That's there on every Tuesday. You can walk in and get vaccinated. There's a number of other locations. It's really important that we get vaccinated. Some of you will know that I also sit as on the board of the Sandal and West Birmingham NHS Trust. And what I can tell you is the vast majority of those people who are receiving medical assistance in hospital are people who are not double vaccinated. So the evidence is clearly there. Please get vaccinated. And I know some in the community have been brought in by some of the anti-vax campaigners. There's people in our neighbourhood who are unfortunately also spreading fake news about the vaccinations. You know, we can't let these people win. We need to encourage people to get vaccinated. And if you've been double vaccinated and you're eligible for a booster, go get a booster. It's really important that we get as many people vaccinated. As I said, unfortunately, we're the second lowest when it comes to vaccinations in the city, which is I think the only ward that's got lower levels of vaccination is Allen Rock, and we're just behind them in second. Whilst COVID cases aren't the highest in Lozells, you know, we were at one stage last year consistently, unfortunately, right at the top of the COVID list. We're not there, but we can't rest on our laurels. So we need to ensure that we're socially distancing, we're following the basics. But most importantly, I think it's really important that we get as many people vaccinated as possible. You would have come across the government's announcements over the weekend in terms of COVID rules. Your face coverings in supermarkets, face coverings in other retail settings, face coverings in transport are coming back. I would strongly encourage you, when you're around people indoors and you're too close, you can't social distance, try and cover your faces with some masks. I think that will be really helpful, and that not only protects yourself, but most importantly also protects loved ones around you. And I know some people feel they're either vaccinated, double vaccinated, or even boosted, and are fit and healthy. it's really important that we protect the most vulnerable in our communities. And we know there's people who've got underlying health issues who are more at risk from being ill and hospitalized from COVID than others. Moving on, we've been obviously working really hard on trying to address one of the biggest issues in Lozells, which is tackling fly tipping. I'm always reporting fly tipping. If I reported something today just off the Leonard Road, there's always cases coming to me. There's always cases going direct to the council. So when you do come across fly tipping, please do report it in birmingham.gov.uk/fly tipping, or give me a shout, drop me a note, drop me a WhatsApp message. I think the sooner we can nip that in the bud, it stops big piles of rubbish being located in one particular area. I continue to encourage and challenge the council to do more around enforcement, and I'm very hopeful that in the near future we will get more investment into enforcement. But if anyone does have any evidence, particularly camera evidence that could lead to the prosecution, please do contact me, and I'm sure the council will use it. The council has had private CCTV footage that's come forward and been really helpful in addressing fly tipping. The Mobile Household Recycling Centre was in Lozells today on Carlisle Road. There's 3 locations that we've chosen: Will Street near George's Park, Carlisle Road, and Old Postway off the bit off Wheeler Street. And the locations are strategically placed to ensure that they're quite central to all sides of the Lozells neighbourhood, of the Lozells ward. And I know there's been some requests to bring it to particular roads. What we're trying to do is put them in central locations where there's decent parking, not perfect parking, but decent parking, so people can get there with their cars, and we can also help others. I've seen people fill up their wheelie bins, roll their wheelie bins up and down the roads to the mobile household recycling centres. They've been a huge success. We've had, I think it's close to 30 tonnes of rubbish collected from Lozells. It's really been really effective, particularly as Perry Bar household recycling centre is currently closed. So it's been really effective, and people have been able to get their rubbish to the mobile household recycling centres. And it's also, I think, reduced fly tipping in Lozells too. 2 other matters I just want to update residents on before we open up for some questions and comments. I've had quite a few residents contact me, both in Lozells and in Aston, about the subway and the state of the subway on the A34 Bedford Road between Hatfield Road and Salisbury Road, and Arden Road on the opposite side in particular. I organised a visit, a site meeting where Inspector Nick Hill, who's also on this call, joined myself, and Rob James, the Managing Director for Neighbourhood Operations, so a very senior officer at Birmingham City Council. The state of the subway is very concerning. It's nowhere near where it should be, so we've agreed to get it cleaned up. We've agreed to put some investment into some lighting. The police have agreed to regularly monitor it and have some presence there whenever they can, to ensure people see the police. And I'm hopeful, if it's clean, if it's tidy, if it's got liquor paint, and there's better lighting, people will use that more. And once people start to use that more, that will also act as a deterrent to those that are committing antisocial behaviour in the subway too. There was a very serious Islamophobic attack there as well that I know that the police are currently looking into. And the final update I'll give is Carlisle Road Park. There's been over some time the flooring on the park where the children's activities take place is not fit for purpose and is in desperate need of investment. So over a series of weeks, we've been having conversations with various council officers. We got it priced out originally, and then we looked at how we can get some support for it. The council has now agreed that it will be resurfaced. So anytime now, the flooring at Carlisle Road Park will be resurfaced to ensure that it's safe for those that are using the park, particularly young children. I'm now going to open it up for any questions. You can either write some questions in the chat, or you can put your hand up. You don't need to put your cameras on if you don't want to be on part of the recording. You can just unmute yourselves and ask any questions. Any questions? Any comment?
Yeah, I Waseem, it's Mohammed. You're right. Are you going to discuss anything about the new traffic measures, the letters that's been going around the area?
Yeah, so that's on the agenda for later. I think you might have joined late.
Yeah, I do have a question that you've talked about the waste, the scheme that you've got. You're putting them in 3 locations. I have spoken to you about it 3 times, but I didn't get sort of definitive answer. My understanding of this sort of scheme is to encourage people who can't access the waste tips to make it more accessible, but it's been strategically placed in the same location, which is only benefiting people within 100 feet, more likely. And there's still parts of Lozells that have, got high cases of fly tipping, and the locations like Carlisle Road, Old Postway, Georgie Park, they don't have that sort of level of fly tipping. And I just think it's in good location, but they should be rotated. And, there are places where you can put them and still arrange your parking. So I don't know where that decisions come from, or, how you're sort of reviewing it or managing it, and just, I just want to hear what you've got to say about that, really.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you for your question. You have raised this with me a couple of times, and what we've got is we chose 3 particular locations that we wanted people to become familiar with in Lozells. They are located. So if you think about, so just to respond to in terms of your comments about the 3 locations don't have any fly tipping issues. I've had more reports of fly tipping on Will Street, on the junction of Roden Road and Carlisle Road, and around Old Postway than any other location.
Sorry to interrupt. You may have had more reports of it, but that doesn't mean there's more rubbish there. Just there might be someone that sees just a handful of rubbish and doing the more reporting, but I'm talking about the more bulky waste that is, in places where it goes unreported because it's not by someone's house or something. So it takes someone to really go out of the way to make those reports. So that's what I'm trying to say. So yes, there is, rubbish on Georgie, but you've got other schemes there, like you've got the Friends of Georgie Park who are doing a good job. So, if that's it, it's all being catered for. So the point I was trying to really make is, if people can drive there to George Street Park, they can drive to the tips in Perry Bar or wherever it is. The point is, it needs to be accessible for people who normally can't carry those sort of things or wheel those things across the road and go, several hundred meters. So the rotation thing, I don't know whether think if it was yourself or some other senior members of council, that's what, like, is this in stone, or can you not, think about it and just take comments on board, ask more people who can't, take part in this scheme, because it's working in one sense, but it could be done a lot better if it was rotated.
Okay, Mohammed, have you finished?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to try and finish on this occasion because I hadn't finished when you interjected me again.
Sorry.
So what we will continue to review the locations. So the thinking was to identify 3 locations which ensure that there's reasonable coverage to every single household in Lozells. We can't take it to every single road in Lozells. We also had to find locations where we can get vehicles there if required, and we have been attracting people by cars, but also by foot, that don't cause traffic jams. I know there's been particular challenges around the Carlisle Road location, but on that bit of Lozells, in the north bit of Lozells, the Leonard Road, Roland Road, particular area, there is no other location that we can use. Car parks, I know some of my colleagues have used car park in Allen Rock. They've used a car park belonging to a mosque, which has been particularly popular, and people have been coming in and out very effectively. We don't have that sort of car park in Lozells, unfortunately. But we will continue to monitor how the mobile household recycling centre has been working. I've been told by the officers that it's one of the most popular wards in the city, and part of the reason it's popular is because I ensure that it gets promoted out there. I know in some areas residents don't not even know about it when they are visited by the mobile household recycling centre. So I am also relying on a lot of digital promotion as well. So when you do get those graphics that come through, do please pass them around. So Mohammed, we will continue to review the locations. And I will continue to talk to residents, including yourself, about other potential sites that we could maybe use in the future. I kind of wanted to, it's not been long enough for it to embed in. Once it's there, we can start to look at whether it's working in all the locations, or maybe we need to change one particular location. Janita Hall, please. You got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to, sorry, good evening. I was just going to comment on what Mohammed said, because I do agree with him. I live on Gunmakers Walk, and yes, Old Postway is convenient for me. But the day I tried it with my wheelie bin, because I had to get back to start work, I could only manage it a couple of times. But it's quite an older community. So one suggestion was that those that were more able-bodied could help, but the able-bodied ones are going to work, so the elderly can't really help. They can't. They can't do anything. What I was going to say is, way back we used to have like a once a year collection. Maybe you could look into that. Maybe for the more elderly, where they did the street collection alongside this. Maybe it's something to think about, so that they could put their rubbish at the end of their drive and it could be picked up.
Thanks, Janita. Very valid points. We'll continue to monitor the locations. The bulk refuse collection that took place once a year that offered every single household opportunity to put rubbish outside. It was very popular, but unfortunately the finances the council couldn't support it. You're talking about millions that was costing. So this is the next best thing that we brought forward. I'm just wondering, so the common theme between what Mohammed and yourself are saying are people who are less able, they might not have a car, and particularly if they're elderly. So I'm not sure whether one of the things we can look at, because we've got a lot of good people in Lozells who volunteer, is maybe we can get people to volunteer, say 2 or 3 every time there's a mobile household recycling centre. And if they can go and, if we've got a system where somebody can phone a hotline or email, but possibly phone would be the most appropriate. We can get a volunteer to go and collect the rubbish from that particular house. So if you leave,
sorry, Waseem, can I just briefly interrupt? Sorry, can I
just finish this and then you can come in, Mohammed? But I've also got Yasmin's hand up, so I'll have to bring it in. Yeah. So if I can go away and look at that as an action, I will speak to a couple of organisations who I know do a lot of good work around keeping our streets clean. Maybe we can link local volunteers and local community groups in with the mobile household recycling centre and have some kind of coordination. The challenge obviously is we won't be able to take the mobile household recycling centre to every road in Lozells. It's just not feasible. It's just not possible. So we need to, but as I said earlier, we will continue to monitor the locations. Is that okay, Janita? Yeah, I've responded to you. So I'm going to move on to Yasmin.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to say, firstly, thank you very much for organising this, because I live in Lozells, and I've noticed that there's a lot less fly tipping because of this arrangement. And also when I'm walking to George's Park as well, right on the corner, there used to be rubbish there constantly, and it's nice that Lozells is actually getting cleaned up, and it is actually making a difference. Agree on what the other 2 residents have said about the elderly not being able to go over to the skips, and maybe sorting out some volunteers to help them to do that. But in the last 2 or 3 months, I've noticed a big change, because I used to have fly tipping around the corner by my house, and that's now stopped. So a big thank you for arranging that for us.
Thanks, Yasmin. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank you for the work you and Afzal and everybody else is doing at George's Park. The Friends of George's Park group are one of the best groups that we've got. So well done and thank you. Mohammed, I want to come back to you before I go to Abdul.
Just a suggestion. It's a mobile scheme that's coming to the community. And as you are a transport cabinet minister, you should be encouraging people to not drive there. So, and it's one of the smallest areas in Birmingham. So maybe moving forward, when it's been reviewed, actually encourage people who live locally to walk or get assistance if they can, and discourage cars from driving there, because if they can drive, all the way to the tip. That's all I want to say.
Okay. Thank you. Abdul?
Yeah, I was going to say a couple of things, really. I mean, what you're talking about, I actually did these things 20 years ago in Lozells. And in terms
I know
of
you did, Abdul. I can vouch for that, yeah.
But in terms of the mobile actual recycling, I think you can actually, I mean, in terms of that is an issue with the old elderly people and people that don't have access to a car. One of the solutions we actually looked at is a smaller vehicle to go around, really, in terms of actually collecting it from the roads that they're actually at. But that's one of the things that you can actually look at. But we actually did it through a community consultation. So most of the solutions were by the community. But in terms of the park as well, Carlisle Park, I think it was done in 2001. But you need to get the local people involved, the young kids involved to actually stop it from vandalizing as well. Are you thinking about doing that?
Abdul, thank you for his suggestions. And I recall the work that you used to do in the community. In fact, you taught me a lot in those days. In terms of smaller vehicles, I know that we're rolling out the mobile household recycling centre. It's a new initiative. It's been very successful in some areas, in most areas of Birmingham that it's been rolled out. But they're constantly reviewing and seeing how we can continue to improve it. So I'll go away and ask the questions about smaller vehicles and also, as I suggested earlier, how we can get volunteers involved. So in terms of getting people involved in parks, I think there's two real good examples. One in fact, excellent example, and that's the Friends of George's Park that I just touched upon when Yasmin spoke. She's the chair of that, and they've been doing in a short space of time, they've done a remarkable amount of work there in that park. There's another group that's establishing in just close to the lighthouse. There's a small park there, and there's some residents coming together to see how we can improve that. I think what I want to do at the next phase is see how we can get some people involved in Carlisle Road Park. The first thing to do was to ensure that the flooring there was safe for people to use. It wasn't, and we want to try and do that as soon as possible. But I'm really keen to get local residents involved, and we've got obviously Heathfield School as well, where I'm the chair of governors, and we can ensure that the school community around that gets involved too. So yeah, happy to take on board. The only thing I'd say is you made reference to what you did in 2001. Obviously, in 2001, there was a substantial amount of resources around. There was a lot of projects around that could support initiatives in Lozells, and there was a lot of work that was done in Lozells. We obviously don't have that level of resource. What we do have, though, is a lot of social capital, a lot of residents who want to get active, who care about the local community, and I want to do that. So I've had some initial conversations with some groups too. So there's some things in the pipeline that I'll bring forward to the next meeting, but they're very valuable suggestions, Abdul. Thank you for that. I don't see any other hands up, and there's nothing in the chat. So I'm going to thank you for all those comments, questions, challenge, feedback. That's the whole point of having these meetings. Jay Kadir.
Assalamu alaikum. Waseem, the chat's disabled.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Good point. Leslie, do we know what's happened there?
I don't know what's happened there, Councillor Zaffar. I got kicked out of the meeting myself. It froze. I've not long got back in, so okay. I'll see if I can get the chat up.
Okay, sorry. We'll try and get that sorted. So just having teething problems. Thank you. I didn't realise it should be back on now.
Yeah, I think it's back on now. Yeah, I've just opened it up to everyone again. Yeah, sorry, it was open to everyone at the start, but I got kicked out of the meeting myself. But I'm back. Okay. Sorry.
Great. Thanks. It's on now. So if there's any comments, we can take them on board. I want to now hand over to Inspector Nick Hill, who's the Perry Barr Constituency Police Inspector, to give us a bit of an update and take some questions and comments with respect to community safety in and around Lozells. Nick, over to you.
Thank you, Councillor. Good evening to everybody. I think I'll just start by just stating I think I share the Councillor's frustrations, both in relation to some of the rubbish in the Lozells at times, and certainly both myself and my officers report that as and when we see it as well, and certainly raise it to the Council via the LPDG. So we want to be part of that solution, and I applaud everybody on here who's also trying to tidy up the area. I think it does make a massive difference. In terms of the local policing, so for those that don't know me, I'm Inspector Nick Hill, so I'm the Constituency Inspector for Perry Barr. So I cover 4 wards in total, of which Lozells and East Handsworth is one of those. I think it'd be fair to say that the last few months, the back end of the summer to now, has been really challenging for local policing. But your local policing team within the Lozells has been working really hard in areas such as under 25 violence, domestic violence, vulnerability, executing a number of really positive and successful warrants, as well as targeting robbery offenders and using dispersal powers to try to tackle some of the issues such as street drinking and ASB that I know lots of people kind of have to put up with each and every day. So we're really trying to tackle some of those issues that people locally are telling us are important to them. What I'd really like to be able to do is offer more visibility, because I'm sure there's plenty of people here who don't see enough police officers on the street. So I keep trying to fight that corner, asking for more police officers in the Lozells, because I think I could do so much more positive work if I have those. In terms of some of the positive work that I'm quite proud of from the last month or two, we've started visiting quite a few home addresses in the Lozells from those, especially young people, in particular young males who we believe are on the cusp of violence. And it's really coming from a preventative angle. And I know it's kind of quite topical with the sentencing of those that were responsible for the murder of Keelan Lincoln today, but we're really trying to engage with families and those youngsters who we believe might be carrying knives and attending the home address. And there's new offensive weapons legislation that means we can have those conversations, and if there's knives in that address, then we can seize them. And actually, we had a really positive example last week whereby we attended an address. A young male voluntarily handed over one of those large zombie knives, and that's a real good opportunity to have positive engagement and hope prevent what could have been a really horrific incident on the streets. So I think that's a real positive piece of work that we're doing, which is really about prevention rather than prosecuting young people. In terms of some of the other work that's happening in Lozells at the moment, you do get lots of extra police resources on what we call late shifts and some night shifts. So you have force resources such as dog units and traffic units who are there specifically to try to look out for those who are responsible for burglary offences and robbery offences. And we're kind of really clear in our direction to them in terms of where we believe those resources should be used. And again, we're doing lots of positive work with local schools, again, with our schools liaison officers to try to make sure that we can kind of get that positive intervention and get some real positive updates. I think before I move towards the end, I just kind of want to talk about some of the more specific work we're doing as well. So I think last month I spoke about the fact that we have an impact team now. So we have a dedicated team of officers working within Lozells, and they're doing quite a lot of work on places like Villa Road, Lozells Road, Heathfield Road, where a whole host of issues have been brought to our attention, whether that's in relation to street drinking, drug usage, or some of the exempt accommodations, to the point now that we've got a court case ongoing where one exempt accommodation may be closed down because we're not happy that the support is in place for really vulnerable residents there. But also we're working with local shops and working with people like trading standards to make sure that kind of people are trading responsibly, and that those people who shouldn't be having access to certain things aren't getting those. I think in terms of crime, and just in terms of the crime stats, one thing which is pleasing is that robbery offences are down slightly. That's something that I'm really pleased of, but at the same time, with dark nights coming in, really keen to keep our patrols out there to make sure that we keep on the front foot on that. And a bit of a plea to everybody out there. One thing which I'm introducing into my briefings now is that I like to capture the community voice, so that when I brief my officers first thing in the morning, they get a quote from a community member. It could be a community activist, a councillor, a religious leader, or somebody in the community who's just got an idea or a perception on what they think the police should be doing, or what we could do better. So if there's anybody out there with any ideas or what really wants their voice heard when I brief my officers, then I'm quite keen to do that, because I really want my officers to hear from the community, because I think it's powerful. So that's a bit of an update from myself. I'm happy to take any questions. Councillor, I will have to leave at about 22, so if there's any questions beyond that, I'll happily take them and come back to you. But yeah, more than happy to take any questions now if anybody's got any for me.
Thanks, Nick. So thanks for that presentation and update. So very quickly, are there any questions before Nick has to leave? Any questions, any comments, any sound bites? Any complaints about PCSO, Rob Capella? Still looking for that first complaint in over 20 years of service here in Lozells. So there's nobody willing to put a complaint into that.
For those that don't know, PC Rob Capella recently got awarded the British Empire Medal. So we're really proud of him. And obviously quite often senior officers get those, but I thought it was really important that somebody who actually works with the community and is respected by the community got that. So I know the council supported that as well. It's something that I wrote up, and I'm really keen to reward those officers who do have the community at heart. And PCSO Rob Capella is one of those for those of you here that know him. So yeah, we're really proud of him.
Yeah. So whilst things are far from perfect, we know that there's a lot of good work taking place. I know the Lozells impact team's been very, very effective. I was managed to go out with Sergeant Benita Lewis and have a conversation with her. She's from Lozells. She grew up in Lozells. She understands Lozells. She understands the challenges that exist in Lozells, and is working hard with her team of officers to try and address them. And I know Sergeant Phil Southern of the Lozells neighbourhood police team is also working really hard too. We could always do with a lot more resources. The response levels are never where they should be in terms of the police. I often get people in the community raise concerns about that, but as I've always said, I will not criticise police officers on the ground for decisions that have been made by politicians in Whitehall and Westminster with respect to cutting resources. So, okay, so Nick, there's no questions for you, but thank you for joining us. Really appreciate that. I know you're gonna sign off in a few minutes. So thank you for coming in on this this particular evening. Okay, we've got Aoife with us, who's from the council's transport team and has been coordinating the Lozells Peoples for Place project. You would have received some letters from the council. Some of you may have also received some communication directly from me. The consultation is currently live. There is a proposal on the table from the council that some people in the community have been involved in putting that together. If you can tell us how how we will consult, what's happening, what the sessions are, and then also explain a bit about the emergency traffic regulation order rather, and what that actually means in terms of lay people's language.
Sure, thank you, Councillor Zaffar. I've got a few slides, so if you just bear with me and I will share my screen. So, sure, there we go. Yeah, hopefully you can see that now.
Yep.
So we've got the Lozells Places for People scheme. The consultation is open at the moment. So the question is, what's it all about? So tonight I'll tell you a little bit about the scheme overall, the timeline for how the scheme was developed, how we got to where we're at, what will happen next, including the experimental traffic regulation orders. Just a bit of a recap on phase one, the current proposals, and then there's a bit at the end about how you can have your say on what's happening in the area. So overall, the aim of Places for People is to make streets safer and just to reduce the dominance of cars. A lot of feedback that we get from members of the public is that, you know, they don't walk and cycle very much because they don't feel safe with the amount of traffic that's out there, and often speeding as well gets mentioned. So on modern housing estates, when they're being designed, you would just have one or two vehicle access points off a main road. So the only cars coming into the estate are ones that actually have business there. So they're visiting for a reason. They live there, they've got business there, they're tradespeople coming in to do their work or things like that. So you could walk and cycle through the area, but you wouldn't be able to drive through the area. So the idea is really to change the areas that weren't built that way to try and prevent so many vehicles from cutting through from the main roads. So basically trying to keep the traffic on the main roads. So last July to November, there was an engagement exercise, mostly online, unfortunately, due to the COVID regulations at the time. And then in September, we introduced some small proposals, small measures on Finch Road and around Anglesey School as well. So then we had a review of those, just mainly around the technical reasons, see if they were working as intended, if there any changes were needed. And then we've come out earlier this year in March, again online, to look at what was going on and get people's feedback on that to develop the current phase. Councillor Zaffar as well been quite active in engaging with local community and getting comments through to us from various representative groups in the area. So currently we've got the consultation. It opened on the 18th of November and it's running until the 17th of December. And this time we have got in-person sessions as well, and I've got some more details of those coming up. So the idea is that from getting the feedback from the community, we go away and develop up the final design, and then we would deliver that in early 2022, probably February we would be looking at, and that would be through an experimental traffic regulation order. So an experimental traffic regulation order allows us to make changes to the roads in terms of the one-ways and maybe putting in some modal filters to actually block off the road through traffic to motor vehicles. You'd still be able to get through by walking and cycling. And that would be in place for up to 18 months. So at the end of the 18 months, then we would have a review of that and decide whether we're going to make it permanent or to make changes to the scheme that we've put in. So in phase one, just a bit of a recap. Some of you might be familiar with this. We put in the measures outside Heathfield School, made it one way, just that bottom section of Archwell Road. Hunters Road made one way northbound towards Lozells. I know it's Villa Road at that end, isn't it? And then Church Street, Graham Street, and Anglesey Street as well, just to create a loop around the school there to try and manage the traffic more effectively around that area. So the second phase is enlarging on all of that. So you're now looking at, oh, sorry, I should have said, the purple ones were one-way streets before we even embarked on the Places for People scheme. The blue ones were the phase one, so those are in at the moment. So at the moment, everything in purple or blue exists on the roads at the moment, and the black ones are the ones that we're looking at in phase two. So we're looking at, on the northern side, one way on Leonard and Rowland and Lime Grove. And the idea there is just to make it more difficult to cut through the traffic cutting through from Lozells Road up to Heathfield. So you can still make the movements and you can still get through, but it's a little bit more awkward. The idea being that, you know, people that are not actually living or working in this area will stay on the main roads, and only the people that actually live or have business in the area will come in. And similarly to the southern side between Lozells Road and Nursery Road, a series of one-way streets primarily to try and cut down the amount of traffic that's going through the area. We've also got this little red dot here is a modal filter. So that actually blocks the street using some planters. There are planters already in the area to enforce some of the one-way systems, but these would have two planters and a bollard in the middle as well. So you can still walk and cycle through, but it closes the road to motor vehicles. So I'll just show you a photograph of what that looks like. So this is a photograph of one that's in a different area of Birmingham. So as you can see, you've got these wooden planters, which we would actually plant up with some greenery to make them look a bit more attractive. And this bollard in the middle is removable. So in case of an emergency, we can actually take that out and, you know, allow traffic to come in and out on the street if we needed to. So in terms of having your say, we've got an online briefing session this Wednesday. If you want to join that, you need to go through to this website, and there's a link to an Eventbrite link that you can get the details for joining that on Wednesday. The following Wednesday, the 8th of December, we're actually in person at the Lighthouse Young People Centre. So we'll be there as officers and possibly Councillor Zaffar. I'm not sure actually if you're coming. Maybe you are. And we'll be there answer questions. So if people are unclear about what the plans are, or they're not online, or they're not uncomfortable, we can take the comments there. If they're not comfortable giving the feedback online. But primarily it's about just clarifying what the plans actually are, and explaining the aims and objectives of the scheme to people. So that will be there in person for a few hours on Wednesday the 8th. There is also information available at Birchfield Library. I'm told that get you to check the opening hours. I don't know what the opening hours are myself. I'm not local to that library, but if you are going to go along there in person to see the proposals, do check the opening hours before you go along. Okay, and is me done.
Thank you very much. I know there's been some comments from Junaid on the chat that I've been responding to. So we will have a look at those issues. I've currently got Carl Randall and the engineering team going around taking this opportunity to have a look at how safe the corners are from the main high street. I know there's a particular issue of Mayfield Road onto Lozells Road. There's a blind spot there, particularly when cars are parked there. So we might have to look at how we review that. So Carl's currently taking a look at that, as well as some issues on the junction of Terrace Road and Hampstead Road. So the key thing is people get engaged in the consultation. I know there's people who don't agree with this. I know there's people that agree with this. Please put your responses in. It is an experimental traffic regulation order, so it's not the final product. And when we do implement the final scheme, it won't be the absolute final scheme, because there will be an opportunity to amend the experimental traffic regulation order before we bring forward the permanent TRO, which will be in about a year's time. So the key thing is we get people involved in the consultation sessions, the one at the Lighthouse, the one online. Also respond. So there's a further online meeting, but there's also an opportunity to complete the forms online too. And then there's Mohammed, I think you're unmuted. Thanks. Then there's an opportunity to visit and see the plans at Birchfield Library too. Birchfield Library is now on the Trinity Road, just outside Lozells. So if you go down Heathfield Road onto Trinity Road on the left-hand side, where once there used to be a neighbourhood office in that particular building, so you can access the plans there too. Like I said, the council has delivered letters and leaflets and information about this to every single household, not just in Lozells, but in our neighbouring neighbourhoods too. So in areas in Birchfield and in Newtown have also received correspondence related to this project. So the consultation is wider than just Lozells. And I've also written over the weekend to just over 1,000 households which are directly impacted by this particular project. The more we get back, the better we can fine tune it into a scheme that as many people as possible. So I'm not saying by any means that everybody will agree with this, they won't. And I'm not saying whatever we bring forward is going to be 100% perfect, but I know I'm convinced that it'll be a lot better than what it is currently. And I know there's particular roads particularly where we've got cars parked on both sides of the road with parking outside, you can't get cars through, and it creates absolute havoc. And there's also quite a bit of rat running through these residential roads in Lozells. So it's how we can, I'm not saying we're going to eliminate it entirely, but how we minimize that particular the rat running to make it safer for all. I know the two schools have given really good feedback around the interventions that we brought in on Finch Road and the one-way circle around Anglesey Infant School as well. So there's been really good feedback from the schools and the school community. Now you don't have cars clashing with each other in the different directions they're going, particularly at pick-up and drop-off times. And I know those schools still have a lot of people who drive in rather than walk in too. Aoife, thank you for the work you're doing. Are there any questions on this scheme? And in your networks, please do encourage.
Can I just ask one question? I do apologize. I'm giving my baby a bath as well.
No worries. Mohammed, fire away.
There's just very quickly, when looking at the proposals, are you planning to block off Barker Street?
So the proposal at the moment on the table is, so you're right, Barker Street is very different from the rest of the neighbourhood. It is about, sort of proposal is whether residents would want to block that, want the council to block that up and create a cul-de-sac there. I've had some comments already on that, and I'm really keen to get more comment on that. So it's very different to the rest of the scheme. So yeah,
I won't be able to attend the consultation. I've got very young babies I need to put to bed, but absolutely that won't work if you block it. It won't work for local residents. So I just lay out there.
Mohammed, can you please complete the online form?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify if that's what was on the proposal, really, because that's what I thought I'd ask before I make my proper comments.
Okay, thank you. I know, Mohammed, you've got a lot of contacts, particularly on that bit of Lozells. If you can encourage others around there to complete that for the consultation as well. The more responses we get, the easier it will be for us to then decide what goes in the final scheme. Okay. Abdul, thanks a lot, Mohammed. Abdul, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, looking at that plan, it's going to create havoc in the area. I mean, was the local residents involved in actually drawing up the plan, or is it just a consultation on a design that's been proposed?
So there was some consultation that took place last year. There was quite a bit of workshops that took place that residents were involved in. Quite a few activists were involved in this too. When you look at the plan in detail, I think it's one of those plans that it's best understood thinking about it rather than looking at it. I think it's.
I'm just a bit baffled, actually. I mean,
which bit are you?
Yeah, and actually managing the flow of traffic. I mean, there's a lot of traffic going through Lozells, and if you're trying to actually close off Barker Street, how's the traffic going to move? Because there's a lot of traffic going through Barker Street as well, up through Hunters Road. And where's that traffic going to go? Because you got Wheeler Street on the other side, and in terms of going down Newtown. But I mean, the traffic's got to move, otherwise it's going to start going onto the side roads. And if you're going to block off roads, how on earth is traffic going to move?
Okay, so the aim of this initiative is to reduce traffic, not eliminate traffic, reduce traffic in the residential roads. So often people, when they're traveling to and from the city centre, they use Barker Street as a cut through. Yeah. Right. So what we're trying to do is keep as much traffic as possible on the main roads and take them off the minor roads.
Yeah, but we're also the people that actually go to town ourselves. You're actually creating havoc for the residents that are actually using those routes. I mean, in terms of it's fine trying to actually reduce traffic, but it's not always outside traffic you're actually looking at.
Mm-hmm. Okay, please do respond to the consultation.
All right, no problem.
Thanks. Any other comments, questions, clarifications? No. Okay. Thank you, Aoife. Thank you for that presentation. That's really, really helpful. I just want to, there's approximately 11 minutes left. I just want to open it up. Is there any other issues, any issues of concern, any other matters with respect to Lozells and the community in Lozells anybody wants to raise? Right, okay. Abdul, is your hand a legacy hand?
Waseem.
Yeah.
What the HMO situations in Lozells? Any updates with like the MPs or what's happening? Really, they're causing a lot of problems in the area.
Okay, so thank you. I'll come to you in a second, Bobby. So there's a lot of properties that look like HMOs, but not all of them are HMOs. I just want to clarify something around that. If a individual is giving his or her property to a number of individuals, so it's a house of multiple occupation, they will need planning permission. That's something that's been brought in about just over a year ago now. So it's harder to you can't just let your house out. But there's something called exempt accommodation where you rent your house out to institutions that provide a house and some form of care. They do not need planning permission. We are, as a council, asking government for greater powers over them because there's some properties across Birmingham that have been converted into exempt accommodation. I know there's pockets in Lozells, you got Heathville Road, you got some on Charleville Road and around Hunters Road in particular, where there's quite a few exempt accommodations. And residents there have been reporting to me particular issues, whether it's antisocial behaviour, lack of cleaning, and other such issues. And there's an exempt accommodation team now in the council that I contact literally straight away, and they're very, very quickly onto the providers to work with them. And at times they're working with West Midlands Police. There was a particular house on Wilson Road in Lozells, which was causing problems. The council and the police carried out some joint work together, and in the end, the company that was providing services gave the house back to the landlord and said they do not want to continue, they don't want to use that. So if you do have particular issues, do come back to us. We continue to answer your question, Mohammed. We continue to campaign with government. We were in a meeting earlier today, an informal cabinet meeting, where we were discussing our continued campaign with the government to try and get more powers, more legislative powers as a local authority on what properties are used and how they're used for exempt accommodation. I hope that answers your question. Bobby, you got your hand up? Bobby, you're on mute.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, can you hear now?
Can you hear me?
Can indeed.
Yeah, hi, Waseem. I was just I was listening to the whole program, and it's very good. You're doing some very good things in Lozells. But I'm just going back to the traffic for a while. Traffic department, because at the present moment, right, you have to reconsider around the Barker Street thing, cutting it off, because traffic is really getting congested around that area. And it's not because of even outside traffic. You got to remember, a lot of households got young people. Everybody's bought a car, so traffic's automatically going to be more. So you need to really think about if you're really going to change Barker Street, or how you're going to do that around that side. Because at certain times in the day or certain times along Lozells Road, it's just chock-a-block. And it's not because it's outside traffic, it's just a natural traffic of other people who's living in the area because of households. Everybody's growing big, all the kids are growing big, so everybody wants a car. It's just a natural progression of life. So I think that when it comes to the traffic part of it, yeah, I think you just really have to think about that very, very carefully. Also, one more thing. There's a new project happening down run by schools called Steps, where individuals are helping out with the schools. So when schools finish at school time 3:10, that helps to disperse kids go home instead of staying on around school. And I'm inviting you to come around there one day to come and see what's happening. Because I know some of the organizations, some of the people who's actually working on the project called Steps.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you for everything you do in the community. And you've been, like Abdul and a few others on this call, been working.
Hi, Abdul, as well. I say hi to Abdul. I ain't seen him for some time, but
yeah.
Hi anyway, Abdul.
Yeah, you've been working for many, many years in the community. I look forward to joining you and having a closer look at what the Steps project's doing. I'm sure it's doing wonders in the community, so I'd be keen to come out. Your point noted about Barker Street. I hear you, and I hear Abdul, and I hear Mohammed, absolutely hear you, and I know other residents have been in contact with me about that particular aspect of this, and that's why it's important we get as many people as possible to respond to the consultation. It is a genuine consultation that the views of the community will be heard. What I will say though is there's clear aspirations to make Lozells, the roads in Lozells, safer for all, particularly those that walk. And I know a lot of people walk, and I'm really keen to see more people walk to school with their children, but I know that some people don't feel safe enough to do that. So if we can reduce the traffic flow, if we can reduce the speed of traffic right across Lozells, people will feel more comfortable walking to the high street, walking to the mosque, walking to the church, and walking to school too. But I hear the concerns about Barker Street. It's we've got to take a close look at that, and we will do. I promise you that. I'm not seeing any other hands up. I'm not seeing any of the comments on the chat. I want to say a big thank you to those that joined us. Hopefully in the very near future, we can meet in hybrid, so we can have an online meeting and a physical meeting taking place at the same time. I know the residents are really keen for that, but I've just got to follow the guidelines that the council give me, and they're absolutely the right guidelines in the current climate, because we're still fighting that pandemic. And I just want to finish where I started. please encourage people to get vaccinated. You know, the fact that we've got over half the residents in Lozells who are still not vaccinated, still not double vaccinated, is really, really concerning. I'm having conversations with people every day of the week about this. So please do encourage your neighbours, your family, your friends, people in the networks, get vaccinated, because the stats are very clear. If you go to Dudley Road Hospital, City Hospital, the vast majority of people who are in care because of COVID-related issues are those who are not vaccinated. So please get vaccinated. Thank you all. Can I thank Leslie and the officers who've helped pull this meeting together. Always appreciate the support that council officers give us. And thank you for everyone who's contributed. We'll have another meeting in the new year. Have a good Christmas and a happy new year. See you soon.